Hello, I'm Vigil. The date is 7/9/2022. The time is 21:32. I hate this video already. I can already feel it. I hate making it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to make this video at all. But I'm going to because I'm trying to, what's the word? Get comfortable with doing things I don't want to do. Anyways. So what's going on today? Today I've decided I'm going to go to college. I burned the bridge with the whole going somewhere else thing for very logical reasons, I think. But I've decided that, if you stay in any one spot for long enough, you gotta set up a temporary camp and start doing things. You can't just sit idling, even in the worst situations. Like, books are plentiful and available at all times. You should be reading them at all times for the rest of your life. Like, by the time you hit your 50s, you should have read thousands upon thousands of books. Even really, like, I wish I would have read more when I was little. I had an aversion to it. I still have an aversion to it. And, but I try to get through it. I'm being treated for my ADHD now, which is super fucking helpful. I, for one, no longer have this rumination. My emotions are correcting themselves. I'm processing trauma, which ADHD kids have trouble with. And I can read again, hopefully, I think. I think I can. I'm going to try to tonight after this video. But I've decided to go to college. I'm going to get some student loans. I'm going to go to college and I'll try to finish it. If something pops up, I'll reassess my plan, maybe drop out, go to somewhere else, do whatever I'm doing. If the nation collapses, World War III happens, or everything destroys itself, I'll reassess and I'll do something else. But since I am trapped here for a while, I'm setting up a base camp, essentially. Like, you dig in when you get to a spot and you find that you have some idle time. You dig in and you self-improve. You exercise, you train, you read, you write. You continue living even if you're idling. And the continued living when you're idling is you don't know what the future holds, so try not to make plans that you can't part with, but at the same time make plans that are short-term objectives which go for your long-term objective. And my long-term objectives, I'm not really sure what they are yet, but I know that an education in anything would be conducive. Like, even if it's in something, a field that I have nothing to have, like, will have nothing to do with in the future, like an arts degree, it'll allow cross-discipline training, which will add to the weird synthesis that creates our reality, But, so I'm going to try to go to college. If they deny me, I'll just apply again. And if they deny me, I'll work on something outside of college. I'll find a local night school, essentially, a night owl's schooling, and I'll do that instead. I'd like to go to college. I'd like to get a degree. I feel like it would be validating. I took an IQ test and I scored in the top 100th percentile, like the top percent. And so, like, I'd like to not waste my not waste my mind, essentially. And I think getting a college degree would be conducive to my future, What degree am I going to get? I don't know yet. What I'm going to apply for? I don't know yet. Can I achieve any of I can do literally anything. Like, my mind has been developing lately. I'm developing willpower. I'm developing myself as a person. The trauma, the delusions, the disordered thinking, I turn them into fantasy, in which you see a lot in my videos. And I'm subliminating my trauma. I've learned how to suppress things, like, as a defense mechanism. You have suppression, where you can choose to not react, choose not to mull over something, put it in the back of your mind, and then later bring it up in bits and pieces through your journaling, your art creation, and, like, you sublimate it, and you learn from it, you trauma process it, and I'm learning all that. I guess, that's the main thing I'm working on tonight, is trying to apply for loans. Once I get the loans, I'll apply for schooling, so I can kind of be like, here's the money. If you guys will let me in, you can have all this money, sort of thing. And I hope it works. If not, I'll just reevaluate and I'll reassess and I'll go to a night school instead. The point isn't to get a degree but to continue my self-improvement and actualizing myself as a person. I haven't gone to the gym in like 3 weeks, but like I can start again. Like just because I've fallen back doesn't mean I have to be all neglect or all derogatory towards myself. I didn't go to the gym for a long time. I can start again, and I will start again, and then I'll probably go for a while until I get demotivated, and then I'll drop out or whatever, but I'll continue to reevaluate and reassess and continue every time something does happen. What else is going on? I rearranged my room. You can see my new background is, I don't know, it's a new background. I don't think I'm going to be making friends in this community. I hate this community, but the bridge is not what I want to do. And, like, if the community falls apart, that'd be cool. If it doesn't, I'll endure the isolation that's been imposed on me by the deceptions and strategic operations against me. And I'll just continue. I'm setting up a base camp, that's all. And I'm using the means around me to train myself further for any future events that may happen. I've talked about before how opportunity comes along a whole bunch in your lifetime. You don't see it coming for the most part. So what you do is you have to say, I'm going to train myself in something, and not only will that period and training open up opportunities in the future that only open up because you were training for something without knowing what you were training for, it also allows you to ruthlessly exploit any opportunity that does show itself. So even though you don't know what the future holds and like you think there's no opportunity, you train anyways, and you train yourself in the things you want to learn, and by training yourself, the opportunities will start to show themselves, and you'll be able to ruthlessly exploit them. And you should exploit every opportunity you get ruthlessly, like with no reservations. You should continue and pursue anything you find interesting, no matter what it is. Like all sorts of crazy things have happened simply because people were going about pursuing things they thought were interesting. Like, I don't know, there's probably an example. I can't think of one off the top of my head. The only one I can think of is how the double helix was discovered on acid. But there's the microwave just was discovered because some dude had a chocolate bar in his pocket when he was messing with them. It melted, he realized he could make the microwave, and now we have cheap food all the time. It's easy to cook up. But so that's my goal for the day, or for the next couple of days, is to figure out if I can get into college or not. I'm a felon because I started a house fire. My own house. It was a suicide attempt. I failed, obviously, but I got a felony for it, and I had to do time. I'm still on parole. That's why I'm trapped in the city. I'd be traveling if I wasn't. I would rather be traveling, but that's not an option right now because of an exterior force that has forced themselves into my life, convinced that they've been wronged, which is stupid. But yeah. I have this trepidation and fear that I'm going to be framed by the government again and put in jail, but it's a common thing now that I spent 5 years in jail for a crime that's debatable whether or not it was actually my fault, and whether or not the punishment was just, and whether or not there was ulterior motives by the community to frame me for crimes and torture me in a cage, and then frame me like I had done something wrong. There was ulterior motive by everyone involved, and it wasn't in my interest, my best interest, to endure all that, but they were convinced of some stupidity that their leadership had pushed, the leadership who's now collapsing the nation. So you kind of get what you pay for when it comes with our country. And what else? I don't know. I guess I'm not unhappy. I'm isolated. I'm kind of lonely. Not in like a weird way, I guess. Kind of weird. But like, I'm processing some severe trauma. You know, I spent a decade believing I was going to burn in fire forever, and my family were too, and that all these demonic things were happening around me. In reality, it was just half of it was in my head, which is still real because we're subjective beings. We perceive our subjective reality as objective reality. And then some of it was real in other regards, which can't be acknowledged because it would create a paradox, or I'm schizophrenic. You know, like, I'm not schizophrenic though, I've been de-diagnosed. So, time will reveal all things, I think. The reality though is that the victor writes history, and they completely deepfake all of reality for everyone involved in this. Um, what else is going on? I bought a lamp today for $50. It's fucking sweet. I haven't gotten it yet, obviously, but it's an LED lamp that lights up the room all sorts of colors, like all the LED colors, which is like 320 million hues. I'm excited to get it. I paid off my debt. Um, what else? I don't know. I guess life can end at any moment, but it isn't ended yet. And you really should only ever stop living life when you're non existent. Like, even in hell, you should continue to live your life. You know? Like, I hate to say this because I'm scared of going to jail for, like, I'm just scared of going to jail, but even in jail, you live your life. Like, you keep reading books. You have agony constantly, and you're constantly being tortured psychologically. But you still read and you still write because you don't know what the future holds. America might fall apart, and if it does, well, you don't know what's going to happen. You know, like, you might get pardoned, you might get a release, you might. Anything is possible. So don't. And then, but like, even when I was in jail, idling around, just being all pissed off and not reading, I regret it now. Not reading more. I read like 300 books, but like, it wasn't as many as I could have read. And rather than being in jail mentally, I could have been mentally elsewhere. And like, even now, after getting out, at times I'm mentally still in jail. And like, it's a horrible place to be. If you have books, you can learn, you can read, you can write, you can escape. The guy who designed the Panama Canal was in jail when he designed it. You know, like, I hate saying this because I know, like, it's, I'm scared that I'll have to eat my words. But even in jail, you can still pursue a life that is not what you want. It'll never be what you want. But, like, and by jail, it can be an analogy to any place. Like, the city you don't want to live in, but you can't leave because the government decided you can't. You don't have to condone it, but, like, if you let it rule you, it'll destroy any peace you have, and that's really all we have is our ability to maintain a sense of peace in any situation. Viktor Frankl in Man's Search for Meaning, I read that book several times in jail because I was in a mental holocaust. I know that sounds dramatic and hyperbolic, but like, it was a mental holocaust. I was being tortured, and like, um, he talks about how, like, in any situation, you can't decide what your situation is, but you can decide how you react, and you can decide to endure it. And he talks about how, like, man needs a task in order to be happy. It's not like a beachfront property. It's not a bunch of money. It's not a bunch of fame and success. That facilitates situations that we dream of and we desire. But from the people I've interacted with, they're fucking miserable. Like, they're bitter. They're reliving lifestyles that, like, require drugs in order to, like, to suppress the guilt from what they're doing and shit. But that's not the point. Anyways, like, having a task, and even if your task is simply to suffer with a sense of nobility, then you do that task, and from this achievement of a task, you find purpose, and purpose is fulfillment, which is supposed to not maybe it's supposed to bring you a sense of life fulfillment, I guess. And like I've read stories of, anyways, never mind. So like no matter where you are, like when I was 15, I hated being with where I was. Like I hated the city, I hated my family, I hated being anywhere near it, anywhere near my own self and my own life. And I took it out on others, obviously. But like, no matter what situation you're in, the future is twists and turns that are unpredictable, opportunities that will be brief moments that you have to be prepared for ahead of time, not knowing what they'll be. And like I said, when you prepare for opportunities start to be created. And like, no matter where you are in your life, like when I was 12, I was miserable. When I was 15, I was miserable. When I was 17, there was a moment of happiness, and I was miserable again for 10 years. I'm 30 now. I was miserable all through my 20s. Right now, I'm content. I enjoy talking with you, whoever you are, wherever you are. Um, that's that's true. I guess that what I just said is true. Sometimes it's not true, and I say it, and then I regret thinking it. But no matter who you are, where you are, like if you don't have anybody around you that's pleasant or social, don't have fake friends. Never give in to the need to be around people. Simply, or don't give in to the need to be around people if they're not good people who are good friends to you. Disown disown your family if they don't treat you correctly. Don't have friends who treat you poorly just to be around other people. Like it's hard. Isolation is hard. Growing up alone is extremely hard, and it hurts you a lot, like psychologically and emotionally. But they will impede and destroy any chance you have of living a life that's truly fulfilling and one that you want. And learning how to be alone is a hard thing to do, but when you're alone, you can focus on yourself, you can grow your character, you can contemplate and implement actualization of who you want to be. And who you want to be is never a question of who were you in the past or who can you be in the present, but it's who you want to be in the future. And you determine this, like, it's silly, but nothing is natural in the human race. Everything is a contrivance. Like, so if you want to be somebody or something, you contrive yourself and you fake it till you make it and you become that person. And you become that person because you choose to start acting like that person. And it's better to not tell people who you're trying to be or become, because they'll degrade you, they'll judge you, they'll interfere with it. It's a silent thing that you have inside where you decide, this is who I want to be, and then you start choosing the choices until it ingrains you and it becomes you. Like Brave New World talks about a piece of wax that drips onto something and keeps dripping onto it until it is the piece of wax. That's how characters form. That's how personalities arise and develop. You have natural tendencies, and you have natural abilities, maybe for humor or wit, sports or whatnot. But like, who you want to be is always your decision, like Viktor Frankl talks about. And like, this is a great thing. It's what the existential literature is about. Is that life is without a plot. There's no story. It's like postmodern, just complete absence of narrative. But you can write the narrative. You can choose who you become. You can choose your speech, your talk, and like repression and suppression as defense mechanisms are an extremely important thing to have. The ability to say, I'm not going to think about this right now, or I'm not going to act on it right now. I'm not gonna do what I want to do, and and then later go back to it in a controlled way, and slowly unpack what happened or what you were thinking, and subliminate it. Whether that means getting heated in like a piece of art, writing about it, journaling it, but it should serve the purpose of processing it and assisting you and getting rid of the trauma, going through the stages of grieving, getting through the pain and suffering until it becomes something that is a fodder for you to grow as a person from. Do I want to relive the last 15 years? Hell no. I wouldn't do any I wouldn't relive the last 15 years for the world. There's just no way in hell I'd do it. It was so agonizing. I cut my eyes out. I tried killing myself. I was tortured psychologically, mentally, emotionally. I would never relive it. And I hate the fact that I had to go through it. But it has made me a wiser person and a stronger person. I don't seek pain. I don't like the idea of like pain, like real pain. Not simply things that we can endure that are painful, but pain that isn't like that we don't want to relive, that we would never choose to relive and wouldn't choose to experience. These things occur though. Pain occurs. It always does. And like at times it will be unsurmountable, but somehow you'll get through it. You know, even if it's kicking and screaming, yelling, and like when you get done with it, you go, wow, I did not handle that well. Cool. Get through it, process it, get through the trauma, go through the stages grieving, learn from it. And you don't have to say, I wouldn't change a thing for the world. Like, that's bullshit. Like, if it was really horrible, you would say, I'm not going to relive that for anything in the world. And those things occur, like, to everyone, and like to each person they're different. Some people it's an affair like that traumatizes them. Some people it's a being beat up. Other people car crashes, like accidents, fires, and like um, wrongful incarcerations, targeting by the community, stuff like that. Like stuff that like is in your control, and then things that are out of your control. Events happen to us all, and it doesn't mean anything if you didn't handle it well. You just weren't prepared for it, or you weren't sure how to react to it, and like that doesn't define you. Only in every moment do you actually like you define yourself, and you also this I want to segue and digress into this, or non sequitur, I guess. You teach people how they treat you at all times. If someone mistreats you, you don't interact with them. You don't have to be pleasant to them. You don't have to be rude about it. You can be if you choose to be. But if someone mistreats you, you do not let them do that by simply removing yourself from the situation or addressing it by directly telling them, you don't treat me like this. You don't curse me, you don't say crude things to me, you don't make fun of me. And if they choose to, still, you simply cut them out of your life. And if you have to work with them, be around them, you just give them the silent treatment. Don't acknowledge them. If something serious happens, you talk to them directly. But then after that, you go back to ignoring them. That's how you deal with shit. And like, you teach people at all times how they treat you. Like, by how you react to it. Like, if someone, you train them essentially. And like, you should recognize that they train you too. Like, if you're treating someone in a way and they don't like it, you change your behavior towards them. And like, but anyways, so these painful events will come, they'll pass, you'll endure it, not because you want to, but because essentially we're alive as time progresses, events are happening, we're stuck in it, it's like an ultimatum, we can't make any good choices, we can't react to it well. But then eventually we get through it and we go, wow, I did not handle that well. What did I learn from it? How do I process this trauma? And how do I grow as a person and character as I get through it? These are all things I'm learning. I'm 30. Like, I turned 30 last May. And I'm just now learning this shit. No one taught me any of this. You will learn things that weren't taught to you that probably should have been, but which couldn't have been taught to you because your parents, they themselves didn't understand that. And like, I come from very bright parents. My dad was funny, at least. My mom was loving. They had their faults, but I developed characteristics that were the synthesis of them. Like, I'm semi-loving at times. I'm kind of, I get angry real easily, but I tend to be kind of compassionate. I'm polite, at least. And like, I'm humorous. I find humor in a lot of things. My dad, I got that from him. The polite and kindness, compassion I got from my mom, and like, but then the negative traits they have, which I see in myself sometimes, like the quick to anger, or the contriving of reality, like, or the depression, or the kind of splitting of bipolar, like, these are things that I see in myself, which I know I don't want to pass on to another generation, and so I actively choose to treat it. mental health, for my bipolar and depression. I learn how to control my anger and not raise my voice. How I learn to control, like in heated situations, I learn to walk away and like you're a synthesis of your parents and your environment, and then how you choose to react to it. But they're not things that are like unchangeable. Everything about us is changeable. That's what free will is that there's no need to carry the karmic cycle or the cause and effect onto the next generation or onto our future choices. That's what free will is simply not letting the things that occurred to you in the past that are ingrained into you continue. And it takes time. It's a process to work through and really dig up and change who you are as a person. But that's part of what becoming a person and actualizing is not it's about choosing who you want to be, which should be changing all the time as you learn more, either reinforcing and becoming more nuanced or changing completely. And like the military uses the term observe, orient, decide, and act. That's a great method for like applying to your life. Observe reality, decide what you want to do, um, or no, observe, orient, decide. Oh yeah, observe what you of reality, orient and figure out your place, what's going on, how everything works. Decide what you want things to be like. What do you want your reality to be like? Who do you want to be as a person? What do you want your friends to be like? And you get to create and pick your friends. They're not natural beings. It's not this soulmate friendship bullshit. It's the reality is that you pick your friends. They should always be smarter than you at doing what you want to do. Like that's who your friends should be. You should be the lowest rung, and like you should be the you should be the worst out of your group of friends, but it has to be in a way that they treat you with the utmost respect, they value you as a full member of their community and group, and that aren't belittled or anything like that. And then you should rapidly ascend to the top, like through observation, your own study, your own contemplation. And when you get to this top of your friendship group, you move on. Like you graduate, you move on to a new group, and you start the process over, and you work your way up through these groups of people who are like-minded, who have similar goals, who are current. Like you don't hang out with people who aren't interested in what you want to be in the future. Like you just don't. And in high school, that's really hard for people to understand. And like you, who you surround yourself with, will affect you. One of the things is people believe that like overwhelming willpower will get me through to be who I want to be, and like the reality is that you should choose the environment that facilitates it to make it easier. If you want to read books, you hang out with people who read books and talk about books, so that in order to be their friend, you have to read the book. And that, like, but I think I'd segued and digressed a bit. Um, these events will happen. They'll be traumatic, they'll be hard, you won't endure it, but you'll still get through it. You'll learn from it, you'll be damaged, but then you'll repair, and you'll learn that that's essentially life. Like every time a bone breaks, it grows harder than it was before. To quote Streetlight Manifesto, like there's chance in everything. Like I could get hit by a car tomorrow, but at the same regard, if I don't get hit by a car tomorrow, and because of my fear of getting hit by a car tomorrow, I don't read a book tonight, then what happens when tomorrow I meet somebody who's read the book, who wants to have a conversation about it, and I miss the opportunity? You know, that's life. That's life in general. That's the entire scope of things. Is that you should be pursuing, advancing, and gaining ground in all areas of what you want to do in the future, or who you want to be, or what you want to accomplish. There'll be setbacks, there'll be turns and twists, and you'll end up in places you didn't expect. I didn't think I'd ever live here. I hate it here, but I do now live here for now. Who knows what in the future holds? I could get executed for smoking in a no smoking zone, like it's a joke about California. I guess so. Anyways, I'm gonna try to get into college. I'm processing the trauma now, really processing it now that I'm on it. an ADHD medication. I can focus. I can think. I'm I'm just, I don't know. Love yourself and choose to surround yourself with people who love you through action. Like through their actions, love you, nothing else. Um, Thoughts are not you. Like if you think a dumb thought, it doesn't make you a dumb person. What you say is always your choice, and your actions are a reflection of your character. Um, and all of this is your free will. And your free will is essentially saying nothing that has come before this moment should decide what choice I make. That's free will. And um, who you are is a result of your free will over time, but you can change it and start turning the trajectory away from what you are becoming. And it's like a ship on the ocean that's very large. When you start to turn, it takes a while for it to start turning, but eventually you're on a new trajectory. And your friends, you pick them at all times, and they must love you as a person through their actions, or they're not friends. And I think if you want to accomplish more in life than you have been, pick friends who are smarter than you, doing what you want to do, but way ahead of you, and learn from them. And you will endure pain that you didn't expect, that you cannot cope with, but you will get through it. The death of your parents, the death of a loved one, or whatever, trauma, pain and whatnot, things that you would never relive, ever choose to relive, but which grow you as a person after you get through it. And you don't have to lie about it and be like, well, wouldn't change a thing. The death of a loved one, of course you'd change it, but it'll teach you things about yourself, about reality, that you can then incorporate and pass on to the future. And you're a synthesis of your parents and your environment, both good and bad, but you can overcome that. And you can, if you do introspection, if you contemplate yourself and do introspective thinking, you can see what is good about you. And your parents have good and bad things, and your environment has good and bad things. You can take and choose what you pass on and what you continue to grow and nurture, and what you decide to condition out of you. That yelling that I recall when I was little. I don't want to yell at my kids, or if I have kids, I don't want to yell at people, so I try not to. But the humor that my dad had, it was funny. My dad was a humorous man. My mom was is compassionate. She is a little naive, and she's a pacifist, and I don't want to pass that on. The religion that I stem from, that took my eye, I'm not of the religion, but I still recognize there's wisdom in it, and I will teach it to my kids, not as our religion, but among the plethora of religions of our planet, which I think should be taught to all kids. You should teach every culture, every religion, every ideology to your kids. And you shouldn't be like, well, we're atheists, so we don't even read the Bible, because all of the Western society's art is based on the Bible. So your kids are missing out on the whole purpose of most of the art when you don't teach them the Bible. You don't have to say this is what we believe and you have to believe this. But you should say this is what they believe and this is what it says. But learn everything, then choose what you believe based upon whatever, however you decide to pick what you believe in. If you're fighting an enemy, you read everything that he reads. And we always have adversity from creation. It's the sweat of our brow, the birth, pregnancies that cause pain. We are in adversity against all that is. Is it our enemy per se, that requires ruthlessness? I wouldn't say so. But the reality is that adversity is a foe, and you have to fight it with the utmost strength, and you have to be victorious over it. And there's a huge probability that we won't be, but we fight until we're non-existent, and then when we come back into existence, we continue fighting. And that's the ethos of our species. I don't know. Anyways, that's what I was thinking.